because we have 25 minutes to do it.
Okay, well, that's not bad.
And so
welcome to everybody to Planning Commission meeting. We will start. John Stout, if you'd lead us in a pledge, and John Wallace, if you'd offer invocation for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're very grateful this evening for this opportunity we have to be here as a planning commission. We're grateful for the wonderful country in which we live, for the freedoms that we enjoy and the opportunities we have for self. At this time now, we ask you to guide our discussion and our efforts and our dialogue, that we'll be able to be productive, be mindful of citizens whom we represent. We ask thee also for thy divine and thy guiding hand to be with us. Mandate that's been given to us. Say this in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen. Thank you. Is there any public comment? We'll get to you later. Okay. No public comment. We'll move on to item 1 of business is approval of the Planning Commission minutes for our January 17, 2023 meeting. Okay. Mary made a motion to approve. Is there a second? Lori, second. Any further discussion on those? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Next item 2, the mayor asked us to look at and consider a change in our city ordinance that would, I guess for lack of a better word, require our city residents to clean their culverts to facilitate drainage in the ditches. A couple of you have made some comments about this, and so I want to have a kind of an open discussion about it and your thoughts and views on it. And I'd preface that with that we do require individuals in our city ordinance to clean away from our fire hydrants, which are on city property there in rights of way. So it's not a precedent that we're asking them to do something on the city rights of way. We've had that in effect since at least before 2005 as far as the clearing of the hydrants go. So anyway, open to your thoughts and views and ideas on.
Do you want to read it as you have it right now?
Yeah, sure. Culverts under driveways or access roads, 2 main roads are required to be kept clean and free from any type of debris by the property owner. That would prevent a free flow of water through the culvert from end to end.
You saw my note.
Yes.
And
But did you send it to everybody or?
I thought I copied it.
Yeah, I saw
Okay, okay, so everybody's seen it.
So just because of what I have seen and see, technically the property owner of that is the city, so if you use that, somebody could use that as an argument for them not having to do it. So I think it probably should change that verbiage so that it somehow identifies the person that lives on the other side of that. So I don't know what the verbiage is, I haven't thought that far ahead, I just see that as a technicality.
Well, most cities require the homeowner to clear the
Yeah,
sidewalk,
this is the
which is
equivalent.
not even their
Yeah.
property. So,
This is the same equivalent.
yeah.
But by saying the property owner, technically the owner is the city, and somebody can say, I'm not cleaning it because
Oh.
the city owns it.
Yeah,
So somehow you need to tag that property owner to resident that lives on the other side of the culvert. I don't know what the
Yeah.
verbiage is, but somehow identify it so that somebody's gonna find a loophole with that, the way it's worded.
okay, understand, good point.
I agree with that. Because in other cities that I've been involved in these things, we're liable to maintain, plow sidewalks, clean gutters, storm drains, things like that,
It's common.
if it's in front of the properties.
Okay,
But it does need to be clarified that it is
Yeah.
owned by the city. It
You
is the
could say
city,
property owner or, not and or, yeah, or.
or to be maintained
to
by,
be
By the
maintained
resident.
by
The resident
resident. Yeah,
Resident.
you need to somehow tag that.
homeowner.
yeah,
Because technically, if you want to say property owner, the city.
the city is, yeah,
Resident at that address.
and we're responsible for our ditches anyway, aren't we? Isn't that
Yes.
what, I mean, we had to, when I built,
Yeah.
if you mess it up, you
Well,
have to,
but that's
you have to
different.
your final,
That's different.
correct? But
I
it
would
is,
submit, because that's a requirement to get the building permit, to have a rock line ditch, to have the culverts. That's part of the building process.
well,
And
that,
then after that, that becomes an easement that's owned by the city. And I do not agree that we ought to require property owners to clean out the culverts.
this, I think what's intended is it's kind of a first line of responsibility. We realize that probably given time, homeowners are not going to have the potential ability to clean in the middle. If it's gotten debris and some rocks rolled down, that can accumulate in the middle of a culvert. And it's not intended that the city will have nothing to do with cleaning culverts. There may be occasion where the city needs to go around with a fire truck and high pressure and clean a culvert out that may have accumulated, potentially because a homeowner has not done that. But it's not intended either to, although there is a penalty, but to go around and penalize homeowners for not clearing out their culverts. It's more to put them on notice that we,
Yeah, there are culverts, there are streets like even close to here. When it rains, the culverts are not.
yeah, yeah,
Well, I mean, my personal experience has been that I've got two culverts, because I have a circular driveway. One of them works fine. The other one, every time it rains hard, it'll flow over the driveway. It goes through, but there's enough stuff in there that it won't continue and take all the water through it. Some of it will flow over the top. And I have tried to clean it. And a hose and a nozzle will not do it.
and I agree with Severn, some of those, because we've been through, remember we cleaned those ditches last year. I'd use my tractor to get a lot of them, but there's a lot of big rocks and things that accumulate with the plows, they roll it in those ditches and a few things. So it is, I think that there's no question that there's some difficulty for some residents to get those cleaned out. But even like with when I bought my lot, my culvert was completely, I didn't know it didn't exist. It was covered completely.
Mm.
So, but I was responsible as builder to
To
re-put
initial
it
installation.
back in and put it back.
And,
So I-
and, there's no question in my mind about that either. That's part of the requirements. I mean, when we review a site plan, we make sure that they've got the right size culvert for that property. Some of them are 15-inch.
most are 15, yeah.
Seems like 15.
So this is my other thought about that. I thought about this part of the day. We had a little talk over the walk of the day. And I don't know if this is something, I think by writing an ordinance like this, who's gonna enforce it? How's it gonna get dealt with? Or is it something that has to be inspected? I don't see the value of doing that. I think people are fairly responsible with what they have, but maybe it's a bigger issue than I know.
Well, I know a lot of people don't do anything. Their culverts gets plugged and then they call the city and want the city to come out and clean it out. And the city really doesn't have resources to do that on an ongoing basis. That's why I say selectively, occasionally the city is going to have to do it in order to properly maintain drainage. But and the idea of the mayor was, well, let's get the city some help with the residents, many of them being able to do it on their own, so that there's fewer that the city has to attend to. If the city will attend to culverts going under streets, I mean, that's not a driveway culvert, and so they're gonna be cleaning those out. So that was kind of the idea that the mayor wanted to set forth with the process and responsibility to do it, is to kind of put the residents on notice that we would like them to do that. And it seemed like the best way of doing it is to put it into an ordinance, even though it's likely not going to be enforced much, but it starts the process with residents, so that you go around and resident can be told, well, this is your responsibility, just like cleaning around the hydrants. So that,
Well, and my assumption to the whole thing is I thought we had to clean those ditches. I mean, that's basically what, I guess I just assumed that after I rebuilt my ditch, changed where the culvert was. I just assumed that I had to take care of that, but I guess that isn't something done in the past.
it's gone both ways. If it's so bad, I mean, we've asked people, the city has gone out where the snow plows have destroyed ditches, rock line ditches, maybe not
Not the
officially,
trucks you're
but,
driving.
Close.
but the city has helped restore the ditches.
Or driveways.
That must be the other shit.
I can show you where my missing parts of my driveway, if it's in the snowplow.
They must have been sticking up.
Don't tell anybody, they'll get on you for not pouring it right.
Now, other thoughts?
Well, just answering phones here at the city, there are quite a few complaints from some people about their culvert, and the expectation that the city come down immediately and clear it out every time it rains is a little excessive, and they know that we don't have the staff or the money to be able to do that.
Because, I mean, I've been on the fire department 1.5 years. There was one time, I think it's a couple years after they did the water line on Mount Hollow, we did go up, our truck to clean out a couple of culverts, but it was, part of it was because of the water line.
Hmm.
Kind of a domino effect there, so that made sense. Craig called us up.
I remember a few years ago, Darrell, a city council meeting, volunteered the fire department to come and clean culverts.
Yeah, we
And I actually asked him, it was much later, it was after I couldn't get mine clean. I asked him, do you guys still do that? He said, oh yeah.
So, us two are with Doral today on a 3-mile walk. So we did bring that up with Doral, and we did have a conversation.
What did he say?
Well, first of all, I'm happy to let him go do that. His suggestion was, well, maybe we offer it as a community service and ask for donations for the fire department. It's like, yeah, I still don't have any more time to do it. Regardless of what,
I really think it's hard for the fire department to pick that up on their
played, even on our trainings. I mean, we train for, what, 2 hours a week,
Well, we do.
pretty much, sometimes
No,
3.
yeah, we're doing about 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, well, you're doing the EMS, between
No,
EMS
I
and
think-
Heather,
But we do our mornings too.
right, the mornings are
We do
about
4
2.5.
mornings, about 3.
But it's, I don't, half the time we never get through it, to be honest. I wish we had more time.
Our fire training is, I'll give you a little background, just, this is good for everybody to know. So ISO is an entity that rates cities with fire, and that's what your insurance company looks at, where they establish a premium. So whatever our ISO rating is for the city will impact what you and I pay for insurance premiums there. ISO has criteria that needs to be met in order to get us that rating, and if we're less than desirable in certain categories, that rating goes down or up or whatever. Okay? And there's a myriad of things. Craig deals with that annually with ISO. They come here, check fire hydrants, they test this, they look at our apparatus, they look at our personnel, they look at the training involved. So Ted, who's our new training officer now, he took Val's place. Ted has to document all that training we do and then present that at that audit, and then based on that audit, depends on where our ISO rating goes, which impacts every single one of us. So we don't meet all the criteria that you just can't as a volunteer, because it's fairly stringent. But because of that, we do try and put our training time into whatever their criteria is in order to help improve that ISO rating, which also training.
And cleaning ditches is not one of those criteria for
It's not, that would be a
ISO.
community service and in the right setting, I'll be honest, I know this is being recorded, a handful a year we can do. Does that make sense? You know,
I think if there's
if
situations,
there's something, yeah,
there's no question that all our residents aren't gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
I've always felt like I'm in charge of my ditch and my culvert, and I'll take care of it. I think that's just part of it, but I don't think, I think that might.
there are situations where if you were to get a call and you talk to Craig and Craig maybe says you bet, then he would hunt us down and those that could would go to. But to make that open to everybody, we don't have that.
Yeah.
I mean, the handful here, there, we'd go do some. Only one.
How many homes have
Just the plugged up
culverts?
Almost every one.
Well, most all of
Spring
them,
Drive.
there's,
Spring
there's
Drive,
a
I-
few-
There's some older stuff that doesn't, there's stuff that's at the top of a road that doesn't really have drainage yet.
there's a few that don't, or they think they don't, but they do.
They do.
Because the culvert's been buried, they've been so long, and there's no ditch there that, facilitates water flowing through it and stuff like that.
I'm just
But-
thinking the north side of Spring Drive, I can't think of any of that have culverts.
There may not, but
What's
the
that?
city's going to have a drainage study done someday, if we can gather the money to do it. And I'm sure that study's going to come back and recommend that that ditches are throughout the city. And at that time, then, there'll be an effort to make the ditches and to put culverts on driveways. So that's in the future, but
There is some concern from the sister city that is below us about some of our drainage that goes their direction.
yeah, they've intimated suing.
They have,
They haven't, but they
they have discussed that option.
talked about it because our water's going down and has in fact flooded out a couple of their homes in year ago, 2 years ago.
And we were paged out to that as a fire department because Salem was doing Spanish Fork on that night. We were paged out to a couple basements in Salem.
So-
Find out later that some of that was our drainage that we got.
Is it going down Woodland Hills or where?
Yeah.
Woodland Hills Drive, it comes in off the mailbox side of the Woodland Hills Drive, goes there and then it works its way down and through and stands.
We've been trying to get it to go uphill, but we've been unsuccessful.
It doesn't work. Gravity is not very cooperative.
So the idea would be, I wanted to present it to you all tonight and that we would follow up then with a public hearing with a regular, doing some rewording here and put it out there, have a public hearing, get public comment about it, and then have further discussion and make a recommendation then to city council.
I think just cover yourself on
I
the
just-
property owner, and I think,
Yeah.
I think we need to have this, and then it gives you something to work with.
I agree. I think it's just the word.
So we won't take a vote on it tonight. I just wanted to present it to y'all, and we'll go forward with the announcement and public hearing and see what we get public back, and maybe by then Severn will change his mind. I don't know.
Could we combine it with the fire hydrant? Just homeowners are responsible to keep the fire hydrant in front of their home clear from snow and,
Well, this is in a different.
oh, it would be
section.
under the
I
street.
suggest they go where it's at, where he's got it.
Yeah, I
Where did you
looked
have
through
it?
it and tried to think, where's the best place to put it? There's really, culverts aren't addressed anywhere.
Yeah.
This is a
So
good
it's
section.
kind of a companion with the driveway and stuff. And adding culverts there to the title then will allow a search
Oh, yeah.
on it.
As you do your newsletter or reminders, you can just, you'll have to reference fire hydrants, section 1, 2, 3, and culvert section.
So any further comments, Severin, on your end?
No.
Okay. Very good. We will proceed along those lines then. Thank you for your input, thoughts on that. Next item is Summit Creek G1 preliminary plat. Ben, could you maybe come up, turn this mic on and kind of give general presentation on it?
I wasn't prepared to make a presentation on it, so what would you like to know? Are you
Just general,
yeah, so this
where
is,
you're at with things.
we're
and
calling
where
it,
you're
you know,
going.
a preliminary plat G1, which doesn't mean anything. It's just a letter and a number. I mean, it's just G1. But it encompasses the rest of our undeveloped property, right? That goes,
On the south side of Summit.
yeah, so like where West Loafer kind of goes like that area south, and then where Eagle Nest kind of the bulb, it just continues down that ridge, and so all of that remaining. Yeah. Well, not Bear Hollow. Bear Hollow is in D. That's a separate, that's not part of this plat. It does. Yeah. And
So
You
once
wanna-
that's done, then I would be more concerned as a plow driver for your situation.
if you give me
Except
one,
those will be private.
But they're going to have private roads, so
That's true.
they're
Never mind.
going to be,
They'll plow themselves, right?
yeah,
we'll just hire the city.
unless
to
they
plow
hire the
it.
city to do it.
That you would do
If you
heated
just,
roads.
sorry, give me, so I'm just pulling up some information to help me describe things. I just don't have it memorized at the top of my head. My computer's slow. All right, so, oh, sorry.
I noticed that in that plat, there are a couple of cul-de-sacs off of Summit Creek Drive, so that driveway entry, exit wouldn't be a problem, but there are quite a few homes there that will have driveways directly on Summit Creek. Is that correct?
In this particular plat, no. So you don't have it on the screen, but everything, everything in this plat, there's nothing in this plat that would have a driveway on Summit Creek Drive. And there is a couple of cul-de-sacs. We're breaking it up into two areas. One, we're calling the retreat, and that's 13 lots. The other one we're calling the crest, and it's split up in two phases. And so there's a total of 30 lots there. So it's 43 total lots in this last plat.
So is this dropping down? I know if you go over Bill Holland, it's kind of a flat area up there.
Like if you were to,
It's been kind of stripped of. the
yes,
vegetation.
this includes that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure what else. I mean, the plat, we have all of the infrastructure in the drawings and all the sewer and rock line ditch, and we have the new, I don't know if it's new, but the road profile that includes the trail on the side, all that's included in this drawing or in this proposal. So I don't know, any questions, I
Okay.
guess, or,
I've got a number of questions, but I want to open it up to everybody. I sent you copies of that, and from your review, were there any issues that you saw that have questions for Ben?
When I looked at it, it looked like the questions that have been there had all been addressed, right?
Yeah, there's some we overlooked, so that's what I wanted to share with Ben.
okay, I'll
Um,
do my best.
okay.
Take notes.
The legend on the plats, it's showing setbacks for the Mountain Villa overlay zone.
Okay,
There are no Mountain Villa, near as I can tell, there's no lots that qualify for the Mountain Villa. So that makes them all R119.
okay,
So that's what needs to be shown on the legend is the R119 setbacks, with the exception of those lots that back up against another subdivision.
okay,
Then you'll need to look at that. Mike Carlton will need to look at that. And there's a separate criteria for setback, yard setback on those lots that back up against another subdivision. I think they need to sync up with that other subdivision on where they touch.
hey, sorry, let me just take some notes here. So what you're saying is,
So part of D,
you're saying the legend identifies all of the lots as being within the overlay zone, and
Yes.
you're saying they're not.
correct.
Okay,
There aren't any, as near as I can tell. There are no lots that have less than 19,000 square feet.
okay,
That would qualify them then for the Mountainville overlay. So since they're all above 19,000, then they take on the R119 zone.
okay. And that may not be that big of a deal either way. So,
Setbacks that are shown
But the
may be
setbacks.
affected by that.
okay,
So that's one area.
okay,
The building envelope, on lots 24 through 34, there's no building envelope shown.
no building envelope. Okay,
Lots 24 through,
34. And the big one.
what's that?
And next is the big one.
Okay, I'm excited.
And this is and we didn't focus on this until today.
Okay,
I was looking at it in part of our review. And it has to do with the preliminary plat.
Okay. The older one that was.
No, the current one.
Okay.
What you've submitted.
Yeah. Okay.
And this comes then from the development agreement.
Okay.
As the requirement that we need to follow. It talks about certain of the platted, and this is, I'm reading from the development.
Okay.
Is this the current development?
It's the only one.
Yeah. Starting out with part 2.2.2.
Okay.
And bear with me because there's several paragraphs that pertain. It says certain of the platted lots is the key, that were created by the recording of plat D and Thousand Oaks F are anticipated to undergo changes as shown on the master plan, and therefore are not included in the platted lots, but instead are designated in this agreement as planned lots. And it says plat F is shown as exhibit B2. So the next section 3.2, planned lots, says the planned lots include lots as shown on the master plan that have not been subject to an approved and recorded final plat. as well as some lots that are in areas where final plats have been previously approved and recorded, but portions of such plats will be amended in accordance with Utah Code annotated
Yeah.
to reflect the configuration shown on the master plan. So there's talking about planned lots.
Okay.
And the recorded final plats primarily, well, are going to be D and F.
Okay.
So the next section then, 2.3.2, says these planned lots will be entitled under a single preliminary plat application to include both the unplatted lots and the previously platted but amended lots. The preliminary plat application will depict the unplatted lots and only those portions of the previous plats that are proposed to be amended.
Mm-hmm.
That includes D and F again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and then it goes on to talk about utilities. So your preliminary plat excludes Thousand Oaks plat D and F.
Uh-huh.
The development agreement says they're supposed to be included in that preliminary plat because changes are going to be made to those. And some of the changes have to do, and this is the kind of next concern, but tied into that, is the changes in stormwater that we've talked about and how to handle those.
Mm-hmm.
And those come off of plat D and F. So to not show those on the plat, the detail of those, there's some reference to them as far as easements. It creates a problem with not having those plats D and F included in your preliminary plat. And as you're going to go forward with finishing those plats. So, I mean, that escaped us in the whole review. It escaped Jones and DeMille, and it escaped, I think, Mike Carlton in looking at the development agreement as what needs to be included in this particular preliminary plat. So, and incorporated then with those issues that need to be addressed there. So,
I'm trying to digest it.
Okay.
Sorry, give me a
okay,
second.
no problem.
Was the main concern the stormwater, or was it just the whole thing?
No, because some of the storm, for example, we've got a culvert that goes almost where Swenson's is. It's the last house that's being built on the left side of Eagle's Nest. There's a culvert that goes under Eagle Nest and comes out over on Bear Hollow. And that's going to be going all the way down Bear Hollow. And the discussions that we've had with Summit Creek is that there's going to be an exit of that. I think it's going to be going under, I think it's Summit Creek or Loafer. Ben, do you remember?
Are we talking about Plat D?
Yes. And then it's going to empty. It's going to cross Summit Creek, and it's going to empty in the ravine back behind.
Between Loafer and.
Well, the plan right now, so if we're talking D, stormwater,
Yeah.
the plan was to have it where Bear Hollow meets Summit Creek. So Summit Creek, Bear Hollow, culvert will go under Bear Hollow, like following down the slope, and then it'll continue down Summit Creek to West Loafer, go under Summit Creek, run along West Loafer and down to the natural drainage.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So that D is impacted by that with the culvert sizing and the roads that need to be done.
But isn't that part of D, which we're doing separately? We have drawings already in review.
In part, probably yes,
Uh-huh.
but for continuity, we'd like to have, I'm again referring back to development agreement, that included in the preliminary plat.
So,
While we're addressing the issues separately, and that's another thing I just wanted to get some clarification on. I
yeah,
know you guys you gave us a bond estimate on
Yeah.
D that we've sent to our engineers to look at.
yeah,
But what happens in D is going to affect G1
hmm
if not done properly.
okay,
So we want to make sure that there's coming together
yeah,
of whatever's going to be done with D, how it's working into G1, and it's addressing the problem. So it's not a problem with G1 as long as D is handled properly.
and are we talking specifically just about stormwater or is that your
Drainage
drainage?
in general.
Just drainage. Okay,
Yeah.
so when you say you want to include D in the preliminary plat, are you then saying, like when we put a drawing together and we show the boundary and this is our preliminary plat, you want us to now include all of D in that same drawing? Is that?
Those parts of D that are going to affect G1, the drainage parts primarily.
But we wouldn't be replatting D. I mean, it's already done. So it's just shown,
It's bringing it into the preliminary plat.
So do you want
As
that
it's
on the
been
plat, or
platted.
You just want a note on there that says drainage at that point where D touches it. A note there that says, okay, drainage from D1
Yeah.
is X, Y, Z, and this is the.
I guess I'm just trying to understand where D is already platted and done. We're not changing that,
Correct.
but
But we're just bringing it into to show, because we are making changes with some of D.
on Eagle Nest, on the cul-de-sac.
Right.
And that's,
And we want to make, and on the other side of it, on the other end of it too, because that initially, I think, correct me if my recollection is incorrect, but there was only going to be one drainage there, or one. We've changed that end of things where there's another culvert coming down from further up Summit Creek.
Yeah,
It's
it's-
going to tie into that drainage and go under
Yeah.
Summit Creek and out into the
yeah,
drainage channel.
originally there were a couple of culverts designed to go under Summit Creek. Kind of as you start at West Loafer and go uphill,
Yeah,
there were two separate culverts to take water under Summit Creek into the natural drainage. Those culverts were never installed, at least one of them was never installed. And so now we're just taking, instead of coming and going across, we're just coming all the way down to West Loafer and then going across.
going across that way.
At least
So
that's
that's
the
a
plan
change.
anyways.
That-
It is,
that's a
it is a change indeed.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we wanted to be able to address in the preliminary plat,
Okay.
where those changes can have an effect on the drainage for, if not done properly, with G1.
Sorry, just bear
Because
with me
they're
while I make
adjacent to
notes.
each other,
Yes,
The D's there, G1's the new one.
but they are.
The D's, there's a fold at the cul-de-sac that's going to be coming through.
Right.
That does change that part.
But we're not trying to get reapproval on the plat D itself.
correct.
We're just showing how the drainage interacts between D and G1.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. What-
And is it also adjacent to F?
Yeah, F is kind of halfway down Summit Creek, from there down to West Loafer. The rest of F going further down was replatted as Summit Creek 7F and some other stuff, and that's down slope. And so I don't think is impacted. Everything downhill from West Loafer, that's kind of separate. So anyways, okay.
And this just came up with reviewing the development agreement, realized that everybody had overlooked that.
Right. So I mean, if your focus is just drainage, when I first heard you talking, I thought we were like trying to replat all of D, and so I was like, oh man.
No,
Okay. Yeah. So that's okay. Cool. What else? Anything?
let me ask you on D, what are your plans in moving forward with D? And
Yeah.
We've heard some different things from different people.
Yeah.
So,
I know there's people that want to build homes in D.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, from a drawing perspective and just getting what the city is looking for, the last piece we're working on is that, the hydrology study, the runoff from further up and see how it impacts.
Yeah.
And so I gave our engineer the green light to go ahead and do that. He's trying to work the amount of snow that's over everything is challenging. And so it's kind of like as soon as he can do it, he'll do it. And so once we know, and he worked with Ted on sort of a plan on what would be enough to satisfy him in the city, as far as the calculations, the analysis that he does. And so whenever he feels like he can do it, he said he can do it in, just a couple of days. It wouldn't take very long.
okay.
And then once we have that,
There needs to be more snow melt. in
yeah, I
order
think
to
so. I just think he needs to be able to see generally where the rock line ditches are and culverts and that kind of stuff. And then, he can count rooftops and streets and that kind of stuff and just see what's flowing down that drainage. But that was the last piece as far as I think what the city was asking us to provide on those drawings for D, right? And then once we have that I guess the approval from the city that the drawings are adequate to finish all the infrastructure in D, then so that engineer's estimate that I gave the city is actual contractor numbers based on the previous set of drawings. And so that may not be totally, it's close, but there might be a few changes. And so we'll get him to relook at it, rebid it, look at our numbers, and then decide kind of when to pull the trigger on it. We know we have to do it, right? As part of the development agreement that we do that. And so, I
So
think,
it's the top, it's at the top.
yeah, for
What-
sure. It's at the top. I think I'm just a lowly middleman. And so the people that control the money make the ultimate decision on when we go. And so it's just take it to them and say, here's the cost, let's go. And they'll just say yes or no, or go back and try and get a better number or whatever it is. But
Okay,
it's top on our list for sure.
okay, good to know, because
Yeah.
that's one of our concerns is,
Yeah. Well, it benefits us too, because if you're looking at developing lots and there's a cost per lot, right? Like it'll cost so many dollars to get a lot that you can sell, right? You have to have inventory. And where these lots are sitting on roads that are halfway done, the cost to get a lot in inventory to sell on these lots it's low hanging fruit compared to where you're working with raw land. And so for us to increase our inventory, it's relatively speaking a lower cost capital outlay to have more lots available versus starting with raw land. So it makes sense for us to get those done too.
okay.
Yeah.
Good. I think that is all that I,
That's it. I had a huge space set up for all my notes.
now here's my dilemma a little bit.
Huh?
I like to get some input from the planning commission on it. My feeling is I'd like to see another preliminary plan with these changes
Okay.
incorporated in it. There's a potential to approve it as it is with conditions, but I'm just kind of hesitant to do that a
Okay.
little bit, because if there were just some minor things, I would, but we're kind of talking about what I see as some major issues that we don't want to overlook. And if we've got them in front of us and laid out, it's much easier to understand that and deal with it and go forward with it and use that preliminary plan then as a checklist against the final whenever that gets done. Is your plan, once a preliminary is approved, are you on schedule to follow up rather quickly with the final on this? Can you share
Well,
that?
and we would, our plan with final plats would be to then split it into phases.
Yes,
Right. And so, and that,
and do phase A.
yeah, and the market kind of dictates that a little bit, right? Where we don't want to have too much inventory, right? So much money laid out with lots that, you know what I mean, if lots aren't selling. And so it kind of, we would be ready to go, but it kind of depends on, where we're at with just the market and sales and that kind of stuff. And so
Okay.
our big focus was getting the preliminary locked in, just so that the ownership felt pretty comfortable that they knew what the path forward was as far as, costs and potential return. And having the preliminary plat approved is a big step for us, right?
Okay.
Because then we feel like the city knows, we know what we're going to be able to do at some point.
No, you've got a year
Yeah,
to, we hope it won't take
yeah,
that long, but there's a deadline on the final plat too,
sure.
from going
And that would be just because we're phasing it, as long as we,
that's phase one.
yeah,
Or
as long as we do
you
something
don't-
on the final.
You don't have to do it all, as
Yeah,
long as
okay.
you're phasing it, then
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yep.
So,
I was going to ask you about the Mountain Villa overlay zone. If I look at the city zoning map, it shows all that area shaded as Mountain Villa, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is.
correct.
Okay.
It has that overlay and that potential, but the lot sizes, it is a proper zone for it.
Yeah,
R119 Mountain Villa overlay,
right.
but none of the lots.
Okay. And really what that impacts, or at least the big impact, is just lot setbacks as far as, anyways, for us and having the Mountain Villa, the setbacks are different.
Right.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see any lots that fall under 19,000 square feet.
Yeah, they're all 0.5 or bigger.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
So I guess I'd have to do the math.
All right.
Yeah. So
To my
half,
question,
yeah, it'd be 20,000 or more.
Are your thoughts the same as far as let's get another preliminary with these things?
The more that's on the preliminary,
That's kind of been my view
Yeah, and
too.
these don't,
Helpful.
I mean, these don't seem like
the
big things. I mean, we can get this done. It's not a big deal.
It seems like you're not very far off.
No.
When I looked at it.
Yeah.
And, okay. All right. So as far as going back to Mountain Villa, we would just need to go back and make sure the legend's accurate and the setbacks are accurate based on the zoning. If they're truly R119, then we need to show that. And those setbacks not based on that zoning, not Mountain Villa overlay.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Building envelopes on 24 through 34, and then the drainage and how it plat
And
deed.
confirm, I think I saw building envelopes on all the rest of them, but just confirm to make sure that envelopes are shown.
Yeah. We didn't want any setbacks on those lots. We just build right to the property boundary. Or no,
You would be the first one.
maybe not.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we get this done, get it back to you, and then we'd be looking at March planning commission meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
If you get it back in record time, we can look to calling a special
I don't,
meeting
I
too.
mean,
if
whatever.
there's a benefit to that, but
I'll let you know. You're right. Exactly.
yeah. This D thing though, that can move forward. I mean, Jones DeMille is going to be looking at that.
Yeah.
as
We're
far
just
as,
getting the hydrology analysis
yeah.
done and however long that takes. So,
So, any other questions or comments that anybody has? Okay, anything else, Ben, from any other questions you have?
I'm trying to think of something to say, but I'm coming up empty.
Okay.
I got nothing.
Sorry it wasn't my intent to, undercut any of this, but particularly this thing here we got looking at it today. Oh, everybody overlooked that development
Yeah,
as far
it's
as
fine.
criteria there. So we do really want to try to follow that.
Sure.
And unless.
Yeah, and we weren't trying to be sneaky. We
No,
just
I
looked
know.
at it,
Yeah.
So, all right. Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. Any other miscellaneous items, Larry?
You are aware, Wayne, and I don't know if the other planning commission people are aware, but the city asked me several years ago when I was part of the city council to participate in the Utah Valley Home Builders Association.
Yes.
Which is a group mainly of contractors, but also representatives from all of the cities of Utah County. And the meeting that we had in February, there was a presentation by the city of Provo looking for some help and some advice there is a big push coming from Central Utah Water that ties a lot of funds, anything to do with the funding of water, what they call landscaping ordinances. It has to do with, will affect contractors and cities, communities on new building, requiring a certain percentage of new landscaping on new buildings, zero scape or low water scape. And there's a lot of research now indicating that, in fact, going from grassy landscapes to xeriscapes may in fact use as much or more water instead of less water.
Really?
Yes.
What occasions that?
It just has to do with the drip systems that they install.
The drip systems aren't watched. I've read that study.
And the other thing is that trees, a couple of trees add landscaping and shade, but trees use an enormous, need an enormous amount of water to sustain themselves, especially if they're trees that are not native or what they call drought tolerant or drought resistant. Most popular trees, including evergreens and some others, require a lot of moisture.
Breaking aspen, I think, take a lot.
Could be. They didn't go
Good
into
thing we
detail.
get a lot of here with winter.
We did get a copy of the research that has been done to compare.
I'm glad this is out in the public.
But it's scary because, to me, anytime you have a funding entity making specific requirements based on their thinking or understanding, like any other government program, not what they intended, but it sure, there's a lot to.
So was CUP at that meeting?
No.
Probably just presented.
Yes, because CUP now is requiring Provo to have this
Criteria that in order to benefit, yeah.
that meets their criteria, and it's going to be coming to all the cities throughout the state, coming down.
Oftentimes, there is a distinction made on the size of the city as to whether it applies to them or
Yes.
not. And I'm wondering, was that discussed at all?
We
If,
did go into details with that. Again, they're looking at mainly the larger cities. Interesting, American Fork is no longer a medium-sized city, a large city. They approved over 1,000 building permits last year.
really?
in American Fork. And, yeah, it's, I mean, and we just look at Salem, I mean, we've got hundreds of new buildings now.
Well, ours are really trailed off, our building permits here. I think we took an average of, what was it, do you remember, Lori, 3 years or so, and we came up with 8 a year over 3 years. Now, last year, there were a lot. And so they made up, for some previous years where they were kind of lean, but anyway. Well, that's good to know. That's baffling to me.
Part of it is because, again, this is going back to my building days, and John definitely built this. A lot of areas, whether it was CCNRs or city requirements, when it was xeriscape, it was, okay, you can't have more than 50% of the yard in grass. The other 50% had to have X amount of vegetation, bushes or trees or shrubs, which is what he's talking. And it usually wasn't a small number. But you got rid of the grass, but you were putting it in additional types of vegetation, hedges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was on the DRC committee for the ranches, Manchester HOA for 13 years. Any of that xeriscaped area, basically the way it was worded, right? If you did a xeriscape, then 50% of that xeriscaped area had to be covered in foliage with the Foliage Act year 3 or 5 or something. So you're putting in enough
I can
plants
see,
that,
yeah.
that at a certain year down the road, it covered 50% of that area. Well, that ends up being a lot of bushes.
Yeah, really.
And what happens.
Just getting rid of the grass wasn't.
What happens to the ordinance as well is it puts the cities responsible for the survival rate for some of the zero escape landscaping, up to 3 to 5 years, instead of going in sod and you're done with it.
After a few months, you kind of just watch it.
Exactly, so, yeah, there's, and so.
Yeah, any of the community areas, the publics, the parks, any of this stuff that.
Parking strips too, I know, are a big part of that.
And so the other situation we have is installing zero escape. Be 2, 3, 4 times as much as lawn and small bushes, shrubs.
By the time you put the fabric down, the drip system in, and the rock,
And
way more
that
expensive than lawn.
increases the cost to the homeowner.
Yeah,
Good food for thought.
yeah, good to
And,
know.
I will get a copy of the studies and forward those.
Okay,
So you can look at those and
good.
compare that.
Thank
I've
you.
known for a long time that zero escape wasn't as
Zero scape is,
positive as portrayed.
yeah,
Yeah, we found as our landscape crews would put in zero scaping, would go to the drip system, they would use more water. They couldn't see it. And so we had a situation just down here at the church.
Yes.
Remember that PM, FM guy's like, something is wrong.
We were called out on
And,
fire.
yeah, we went down and looked at it.
was that because drip
The
system
drip
they're using
system was
this?
just left on. It was.
Oh,
broken
really?
It was running and they were running 10,000 gallons a
A
day.
day.
It was a lot.
Yeah, boy, I
Tremendous
keep
amount
on-
of water.
Remember when the church
Yeah.
down there, it was 300.
Yeah, the bill was so high.
The bill was so high.
Something's
So
wrong.
we got,
Thought there was a leak somewhere in it.
we got paged out because the guy was down with the riser and somebody had gone down and turned something off and it turned off the riser water.
Yeah, he turned off the riser to the fire sprinkler.
So we went and it ended up being somebody had left on some drip thing.
Yeah, we found that the drip systems, once we switched from, watering the shrubs and stuff with spray heads to drip, the water bill would go up.
Yeah, good to know.
So,
It's that out of mind.
yep, because your drip goes into the soil quickly. You don't realize how much water that plant's getting.
Yeah,
Unless you have an analysis done by somebody that really knows what they're doing, they're always overwatered. And they put out a
It's a
lot
great
of leaks.
concept.
There's a lot of leaks that go on with it too. You
You
don't
can't
ever
see
see, because they put it
Yeah.
under rock.
All under the
They could be
fabric.
shooting a 3/4 inch pipe for days.
You won't even know. Which was part of this church.
The church
They
thing.
had a broken thing there.
well, Corbett has to do, is it quarterly, Lori, that water report that he does? To DWR, do you know,
I thought it was maybe biannually.
biannually?
It's just-
Anyway, he does a report, analyzing that, and the city's always under what we're approved to use. Yeah. So we're in okay shape with our water usage.
The other dilemma that we have, of course, is we do not have second.
That's right.
And so we use culinary or primary for everything.
Yeah.
It's more expensive.
If you water, don't mind paying.
Now, just by way of background, what Larry's saying, years ago when Toby Harding was mayor, the city signed up for a possibility of secondary water that's coming out of Strawberry. And it's part of it's being used there now, but there was like 5 cities that have bought into that, and well, more cities than that, but the idea was to use that as secondary water. And last year, no, excuse me, 2 years ago, we were faced with time to pay up, because you could sign up for no cost. And now it's time to pay up. It would have cost the city $1 million to sign on to that secondary water system and then have approval to use it. And that was just signing, that's right. There was a tank that was gonna have to be built and pumped up here and all, everything else involved with it. So the city decided, we just can't afford it. So they opted out altogether of that process. But other cities, Salem, and that's part of what Salem's big, some of the cross the road and all that stuff, that coming in from Powerhouse Road, all that line, that's what all that is about. Comes down Diamond Fork Canyon and comes over here and goes to the different cities.
You realize I know you're coming to say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Ambulance on Thursdays. On the door in the ambulance room, and sitting inside the ambulance is all the sheets of reporters. There's
Oh.
about 10 of these a week. And they said they change, and I don't know.
All closed, yeah.
Let's hope you get.
If we get paged out, we'll figure out.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, good, Larry, appreciate that report. Good to know. Well, you know, it probably wouldn't hurt for you to let the mayor know, to see if he wants you to come in at a council meeting every now and then and give a report on that, since you've kind of taken over that. So,
Except July and December, so 10 meetings.
okay. Particularly if, I mean, some of them are probably kind of routine, but where there's something major like this, good to know.
Was Provo going to push back on this, or they just?
Well,
They
they,
tried
they
to
were,
rally the troops to
yeah,
push
they had 3 people there from Provo. They were just thinking, well, see, you can certainly, this will just kind of go with the flow. And, the coordinator for Utah Valley Home Builders Association, she is on the ball, and she's the one that did the research.
Okay.
She said,
the data.
don't jump in on something that you're not sure of. Don't take their word for it, just because they're, I mean, it's kind of like them coming back and saying, hey, up, now you owe us $1 million. In my career as an educator, and we won't mention which president it was, but Utah did not vote for the president who won. That president who won came in 3rd place between the other party and the independent. And because of that, the civil rights umbrella was sent to Utah to investigate civil rights of Native American students, get back at it. And I was in one of the districts that was audited, and it was a nightmare. Literally, I was co-chairperson of special ed for the whole district in Duchesne. They called the superintendent, said, we will be there on this date. We want to meet with you in your district office. We will have our 5 attorneys or lawyers explaining things that are going on. We got to the meeting, the first thing they said, we are investigating this school. Well, that's in Uinta district. They said, no, it's not. It's right next to Roosevelt. Roosevelt's in your district. Yeah, but that's actually in Ballard. It's in Uinta district, because it was a high percentage Native American students living in that. And he said, we're not lying to you. It is in the other district. And they would not believe us. And they said, well, no matter, we're still going to do your district. And they told us what they expected. They were especially hitting minority students, especially special ed students, being in charge of special ed students. My partner and I looked at their reply with the same one they sent to all 5 districts, including San Juan District, Grand District, Ogden District, our district, and one other, I think it was Tooele. And they signed off on it, and my partner, I went into the superintendent and said, do not agree to this. He says, I've got to respond in 3 days. And he said, you can respond by saying you're not agreeing to this and this and this. And he sent that in, and they took 4 weeks to respond. And sent in, saying you will do this, or we will do further investigation. And we responded, we do not have to do that according to your own guidelines. We can offer alternatives. We went back every time they sent something, we had 3 days to respond. They took 4 to 6 weeks to respond. It ended up taking about 9 months. And they finally said, okay, you don't have to do what we said you have to do. You can do what you say you want to do. It cost us about $300,000. San Juan District paid $2 million. It was a nightmare, so.
Yeah,
you know,
we're the government. We're here to help you.
You pay for it. we'll help you. Sorry to digress there.
No, no problem. Anything else for discussion?
Maybe can I-
Yes,
Sorry,
please.
I just want to make sure I have it straight.
No, no.
I'm sitting here noodling over. So, as far as the drainage conversation, what would you like to see, just so we submit the correct information?
What we've talked about with D and the changes within that, is there going to be any negative effect, or how has that been addressed so that G1 has proper drainage?
Okay, and is so.
So there's
a-
not
a
an
note?
adverse impact on that.
Right.
Now, when we go to a final from the preliminary, there may be, I mean, those drainage issues are going to have to be addressed as we look at the whole overall plan to make sure that they've been incorporated in the final plat, addressed where necessary and where needed to do that, to make sure that the drainage is properly addressed. I know that, and that's a big issue with the development agreement. I know Summit Creek said, once you've approved the drainage, how it's been going to do, and it's done, you city take responsibility for it. So I know that's a kind of a high priority for you all, and I can understand that. And we said we will, as long as it has been addressed by our ordinance in the right way.
Yeah.
So we just want to make sure that our ordinance addresses a drainage and is incorporated into it, those guidelines are followed.
So when we resubmit drawings to you, making these changes, what do I need to put on the drawings? A note or?
A
Show
note, you've
all
already
plat-
got a note on there that says that all construction and all construction will follow Woodland Hills ordinances and development and construction standards.
Right.
So there doesn't really need to be anything beyond that. That note is there and it's covered. And implication is that whatever you're doing are going to follow our ordinances, development and construction standards. So it would probably be good to check back with us to see if there's any specific thing relating to drainage that needs to be addressed separately. Particularly if there's really no ordinance that's being followed, but a how-to, what's going to be happening, that may not be clear from the drawings. It would probably be good to include a note that the drainage easements are going to be critical. If there's a drainage easement needed, it's good to identify that in a note, that drainage easement identified such and such a location will be used to handle drainage from this area or that area, so that notes are a good way to clarify or to add to what might be shown on the plat itself. So we'd leave a lot of that up to you and with our engineers they're the ones that are going to be inspecting to make sure it's done. So sometimes a note is very helpful to them to know that we need to make sure that we review this and it's been adequately addressed on the plat.
Okay.
So in other words, the new plat does not negatively impact what's happening or me because it will be tied in.
Correct. Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I guess I'm just still not quite sure what we need to put on the drawing to fulfill whatever it is that we're talking about here. Like, is it?
I know that there's some lots that have been vacated.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're bringing D into that drawing and F into that drawing show vacated lots that are no longer, that are going to be reconfigured.
And I think we have that.
Okay. Then,
So they're a lighter grade outline with the darker line showing the new lot on top of each other. It shows that.
okay.
Yeah.
All
And,
right.
and the vacated lots is in the description at the bottom. It says
Yes, I
we're-
noticed
yeah,
that.
okay.
It was highlighted there.
Yeah.
So
So do they need pipe sizes or what is?
Not at
is that what
this
you're asking us
stage.
more?
I don't know. I guess I just
specific?
want to make sure that I put whatever it is you're looking for on the drawings so that we're all happy.
Because what that, I don't, maybe I just don't understand. Seemed like they wanted just a description of how the new phase ties into the old, or the old, what's existing.
Yeah, D, how D impacts or how they
G
interact
one.
with
And
each
then
other.
To see
Yes.
what, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay.
to make sure that what you're doing, what we're doing at D is not going to have an adverse impact
Okay.
on G1.
All right.
And vice versa.
Right.
Yeah, but
It's
it,
downhill.
yeah,
It's mostly downhill.
Well,
And-
this water's first one.
Fair enough. And then I did see the building envelopes, I think, on the drawing that you questioned. I could show you if,
2434?
well, 224 through 234. We don't have a 24 through 34.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing.
24, those lots are all the way down by our mail house and those are already built on. So that's a different. It would most likely be 224.
These are shown as Phase D. What are those then? The vacated? Are those going to be the vacated lots?
Can I just see?
Yeah, come on up.
This drawing was just showing the drainage easement existing that we're using, we're gonna run the sewer through here. I think these are just, that's just for information. There's already homes on these. That's like Summit Creek Drive is right here. Here's our pool. Here's our inspiration, right? So
Okay.
This is all just,
Okay,
yeah, that's not,
just for reference.
that's just for reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I can take that one off the list.
Yep.
Great. So then, work out the overlay zone language, making sure that's correct, and then the drainage that we talked about. Those are the
Yes.
two items.
And make sure that the billing envelope is, I mean, we can. do
Yeah,
that too.
I
Is
just
make
went through
sure
all
that
of them.
of them have it.
They're all shown,
Yeah.
so you
okay.
should be okay.
All right.
But I'll double check that. So,
That's what I said.
with the right setbacks. Thank you.
And those lots that back up against Plat D
Yeah,
need to be reviewed again to make sure that there's a proper setback on those where they're back to back.
Well, the D,
Yes.
back setback is 30 feet, which it is.
30 feet.
So then the lot that's contiguous will need
It's
to
to be
have
30 feet. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. I'll take a motion to,
Well,
yes.
we had two other things that we were
Oh,
going to
yeah, I
do
haven't lost those.
at some time.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Well,
put
I want to
one
give
for
just a
future-
little bit more time for
You want to make sure
things to settle down and make, yeah.
the new people are actually in the house.
I understand they're going to be doing some work in there and maybe replacing carpets. And so while they've started to move in, it may be,
They haven't moved in.
okay. They
The
talk
house
about
is dark.
waiting to, so. Okay. Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second that.
Very good.
Good night.
Okay, good night, Ben.
Life slow.
Larry, you made the recommendation to adjourn, and John, you second. Okay. Lori, can you go back and shut that off? Just a little update.